that Representative Blais has joined us, so we will go back to our panel with Kyle Murray and Representative Blais.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, and can see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me and for taking me out of order. I am here today to testify in support of H.755, an act reforming energy system planning for equity and climate transformation, otherwise known as the RESPECT Bill. Last session, the legislature advanced transformative legislation to address the climate emergency. The provisions signed into law around solar, grid modernization, electrification, the expansion of wind power, and so much more will help the Commonwealth to meet our clean energy goals. I'm extremely grateful for your leadership and that of the Speaker in advancing not one, but two major climate bills last session. And I want to recognize the leadership of the Acadia Center, who was an instrumental partner in advancing the grid modernization bill last session. I'm grateful to be here today with Kyle Murray, the Senior Advocate and Massachusetts Program Director at the Acadia Center, who has helped bring this legislation forward. Mr. Chair, in the face of dire predictions of the impact of climate change, the Commonwealth must commit to re-examining and reimagining the regulatory framework as it pertains to the intricate relationships between the gas and electric utility systems, the interdependence between gas and electric demand, and the current laws that separately regulate them by state public utility commissions. A coordinated effort is required to better align planning with climate equity and clean energy goals and requirements, while also reducing costs for consumers. I think it's telling that the comments that gas local distribution companies provided in response to the DPU's investigation into the role of gas local distribution companies as the Commonwealth achieves its Target 2050 goals, stated that the court, and I quote, "coordinated planning is a complicated task and not traditionally undertaken by the LDCs. This legislation assists utilities in this clean energy transition as they face the near impossible task of making planning and investment decisions that must work in support of consumers, state policy, and the utility itself." In that response, the LDCs further argued that, and I quote, "it is appropriate for utilities to develop their own investment plans, which address their system's specific needs, demonstrate compliance with all federal and state regulatory and statutory requirements, and align with financial and corporate goals. Their measured and reasonable approach doesn't necessarily meet our goals. It meets their goals and the goals of their shareholders. And the result are it's poor outcomes for consumers. It's poor outcomes for climate goals and clean energy investments. It's delayed relief of environmental justice burdens and conflicts of interest that preserve the use of fossil fuels and slow the pace of building our clean energy future." Mr. Chair, this legislation is bold in its goal of reimagining the traditional regulatory framework for how utilities make investments and decisions. But this body has been bold before when it comes to addressing climate change and meeting our climate goals. As this bill is being filed for the first time, we stand ready to work with the committee to further refine it. And I thank you sincerely for your consideration of my testimony and this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. And I'm also excited to hear about electric vehicles when you get back from your tour there.
I have a lot to share.
Excellent. Kyle?
Chair Roy, honorable members of the committee. My name is Kyle Murray, and I'm the Massachusetts Program Director for Acadia Center. Acadia Center is a nonprofit research and advocacy organization that works to advance bold, effective, and equitable clean energy solutions. We have a long history of advocacy for creating a fully integrated, flexible, and low-carbon energy grid. I'm here today to testify in support of H.755 and S.2091, an act reforming energy system planning for equity and climate transformation, which is a mouthful, and that's why we refer to it just as RESPECT usually, filed by the Representative and Senator Comerford respectively. So RESPECT proposes a modernized framework for how utilities make investment decisions to ensure that investments in our energy system are aligned with state goals to address climate pollution, further environmental justice, and lower consumer costs. RESPECT reforms are needed because utility planning today faces three key problems. Utility planning is siloed between electric and gas utilities, which causes overspending, reduced reliability and resilience, and more climate pollution. Current planning processes ignore equity and environmental justice, and utilities have a financial interest in the outcomes of their planning decisions, creating significant conflicts of interest. RESPECT proposes a new framework for how the electric grid and gas network should be planned that will help ensure our energy systems meet state goals to reduce climate pollution, further environmental justice, and lower consumer costs. First, states should conduct all-in independent system planning that incorporates meaningful stakeholder input, including voices that have been ignored to date. Comprehensive planning should consider supply and demand side resources, as well as climate requirements and environmental justice impacts. Second, states should create neutral statewide planning entities that are designed to look for solutions beyond utility boundaries and across fuels, leaving traditional utilities free to focus their efforts on business development in alignment with climate and equity mandates. To accomplish these goals, this legislation creates a new Department of Energy Transformation Planning under the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. This legislation would task this new department with developing and implementing long-term distribution system plans to assist in the transition to a clean, affordable, and reliable electric grid and restructured natural gas distribution system in a cost-effective manner. They would also conduct this long-term planning while ensuring a transparent process, which will help ensure that planning is done in the best interest of ratepayers and the Commonwealth's greenhouse gas reduction goals. It is clear that our current approach is simply not working, and additional resources, programs, and ideas are necessary for economy-wide decarbonization. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, I thank you both for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.